The National Anthem protest that has enveloped the NFL has created barely a ripple in the college game, in large part because the vast majority of teams are in the locker room when it's played, but there have been pockets of college players following the lead of their professional counterparts. One such instance came Saturday afternoon, with Pitt walking kickery and Troost going solo and kneeling for the anthem prior to the game against North Carolina State. He wasn't alone, though, as senior offensive tackle Jared Jones-Smith stood behind Troost with his hand on his shoulder. Afterwards, Pat Narduzzi said he supported Troost's decision. "I'm never going to tell a guy you can't do something," the head coach said according to the Pittsburgh Tribune Review. "What we've talked about is, if you're going to do that, you're trying to make a statement, we're going to stick together." Someone had his hand on his shoulder saying, "We're with you. I know I'm going to stand and put my hand over my heart," Narduzzi added. Troost's teammates were supportive as well, with one stating that "my take is everyone should be able to do what they think is needed to express themselves, and another everybody has their own freedom to do as they please." One, however, questioned the effectiveness of this avenue of protest. "Is really taking that knee going to prove anything?" senior cornerback Avonte Maddox said. "That's a statement for 30 seconds. You want to take action. If you really want to get out and do something, we want to go out in the real world and do things to make actual change, not 30 seconds of fame making a statement out there. Is that really going to help us?" Troost, who is white, wasn't made available to the media by the Panthers after the game. Oregon and Stanford have combined to produce some of the most memorable and nationally relevant Pac-12 games over the past few years. On a weekend filled with upsets and improbable results, could the two get together for one more? Not quite. Number 23 Stanford did just about whatever they wanted on offense and powered to a 497 victory over their Pac-12 North rivals to win a fourth straight and look a lot like the team many thought could win the division in the preseason. Running back Bryce Love was once again the star of the show, breaking off a 67-yarder that adds to his highlight reel and finishing a rather ho-hum night with 147 yards and 2 scores. More pressing for the Heisman candidate is how he's feeling, as he didn't play much in the second half after limping off with what looked to be an ankle injury. Though it could just be precautionary, the issue is something to monitor for one of the most explosive runners in the country. Surprisingly though, the running game wasn't the only threat for the Cardinal offense. Quarterback Keller Christ was an efficient 15 of 21 for 181 yards, 3 touchdowns and 1 interception before giving way to backup KJ Costello. Most of those yards and scores were thrown toward massive wideout J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, who was an uncoverable threat in the red zone and finished with 112 yards and 2 touchdown catches. The nearly 500-yard effort also overshadowed another quality defensive job by Stanford as well. Oregon running back Royce Freeman did manage to rush for 143 yards, but the Ducks scored only once and were little to no threat with their backup quarterbacks in action once again. Braxton Burmeister started behind center but completed just 4 passes for 25 yards and threw 2 interceptions. Taylor Alley replaced him in the second half, but didn't fare much better. It marked a rough return to the farm for New Oregon coach Willie Taggart, who was a former assistant with David Shaw under Jim Harbaugh at the school several years ago. Shaw probably won't apologize, however, as the impressive outing by the Cardinal may, combined with other upsets, make them the team to beat in the Pac-12 given how well they're playing at the moment. One of the bigger storylines heading into Week 7 was the fact that there were no ranked versus ranked matchups, the subliminal implication being that this would be an uneventful weekend, as is oftentimes the case. The sport of college football scoffed in the general direction of conventional wisdom. Friday night begat number 2 Clemson falling to Syracuse and number 8 Washington State embarrassing itself against Cal. Saturday afternoon begat number 10 Auburn coughing up a second-half lead in a loss to LSU. Early Sunday morning brought additional top 10 carnage. Ranked 5th nationally and winners of 9 straight in the regular season, Washington entered the weekend comfortable favorites over 23 Arizona State, in a game that didn't feel as close as the final score indicated. However, UW fell from the ranks of the unbeaten as Arizona State laid a stunning 137 loss on the Huskies. UW's loss means that 4 of the teams ranked in the Associated Press top 10 coming into Week 7 went down in defeat ahead of Week 8 in the biggest top-shelf shakeup of the 2017 season thus far. The teams that avoided being caught up in the upset maelstrom: number 1 Alabama, number 3 Penn State, number 4 Georgia, number 6 TCU, number 7 Wisconsin and number 9 Ohio State. The Nittany Lions were on a bye this weekend, while the other 5 top 10 teams left unscathed won by an average of 25.4 points. Take away UW's 8-point win over Purdue, and that average jumps to nearly 30. Add it all up and it was, on all fronts, a seismic shift when it comes to the Power 5 balance of power. Then there's this: when you add in number 19 San Diego State getting beat by Boise State, a significant development in the group of 5 undefeated teams suffered their first losses of the 2017 season this weekend. And, again, this great sport scoffs in the general direction of what you think may or may not happen any particular weekend. I'm thinking even video game freaks would dismiss this as implausible, even as it's as real and impressive as it gets. In Week 6, Khalil Tate rushed for 327 yards in a win over Colorado, setting the FBS single-game record for a quarterback. A week later, the sophomore added to this impressive October run as he ran for 230 yards in a 4,730 win over UCLA, becoming the first FBS quarterback in 2 decades to put together back-to-back 200-yard games. The 557 rushing yards combined in the 2 games are more than all but 19 players had in the first 6 weeks entering this weekend. Hell, it's more than 10 teams had coming into Saturday as well. Perhaps the most impressive part of this historic run: Tate has accomplished this ground game carnage on just 29 carries. For those scoring at home without a calculator or a pad and paper or the mental acumen to do it in your head, that averages out to 19.2 yards per carry. In other words, Tate has just been flat ridiculous. Most quarterbacks would have taken a sack on this play. Khalil Tate is not most quarterbacks. Pick.twitter.com 060 HSFWIC Arizona Football at Arizona Fall October 15, 2017. Somewhat lost in the statistical flurry is what the player has meant to his team's bottom line. Tate didn't start the season as UA's starter under center, and the Wildcats began the year a middling 22. The past 2 weeks, however, the Tattled Cats have gone 20 and are now behind only USC in the Pac-12 South. Things got weird as the sun set on the Bay Area on Friday and Cal pulled off the upset of number 8 Washington State on Friday night. A day later and much further south, things were equally strange, even if the ranked team didn't look like it was quite on upset alert. Number 23 Stanford wound up with a 287 lead into halftime over Oregon down on the farm, but the locale lived up to its nickname in Palo Alto as a jackrabbit found its way onto the field late in the first quarter in one of those incredible moments that could only happen late into the night out west. In actual game action though, Cardinal running back Bryce Love was once again adding to his Heisman highlight reel by ripping off a 67-yard touchdown run early on and finishing the half with 142 yards and a total of 2 scores. Wideout J.J. Arcega-Whiteside added another score through the air as Stanford's normally hectic offense seemed to do what it pleased against the Ducks. That also included special teams, as Brandon Simmons scooped and scored off a punt block in the second quarter. The lopsided score was a little surprising considering how well Oregon ran the ball in the half. Royce Freeman wound up with 121 yards on just 12 carries and 3 others managed at least 25 on the ground too. The flip side was backup quarterback Braxton Burmeister managed just 1 completion for 4 yards. Things figure to get even tougher for the young signal caller as Stanford gets back 2 of its best defenders for the second half in Harrison Phillips and Peter Colombayi after each returns from a targeting penalty from their last game.